production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Today on Farm Week, our first ever benchmark in the way U.S. corn is used will occur soon.
Ethanol production is getting more efficient, but it's still a controversial fuel.
In southern gardening, the coneflower. This native plant puts on a show with very little care.
In the markets, farm-raised catfish prices continue to rise, while the cotton crop appears big enough to meet current demand.
In the feature segment, being down on the farm is actually up in the air in New York City. You'll visit the world's largest rooftop garden.
It just seems to make sense to me to do something practical on top of rooftop spaces. We have all these empty roofs that have sun bearing down on them all day long. So it makes sense to do something with them that's productive.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
The use of corn to make ethanol has been controversial in the last few years. A milestone event will happen in the next year that will only add to that controversy.
Leighton, the U.S. Department of Agriculture says that in the 2011-2012 marketing year, more corn will be used to make ethanol than animal feed. The change stands to make the price of corn and alternative feed sources go up. The USDA says in the coming marketing year, 5.1 billion bushels of corn will be used to make ethanol. That's 200 million bushels more than the 4.9 million expected to be used for livestock feed. An economist with the University of Missouri Extension Service says this will make corn prices higher, and this will in turn pull alternative feed sources higher, such as alfalfa.
It's expected that some congressional lawmakers will once again take aim at the subsidies paid to companies which blend ethanol into their gasoline. Barring any action, the so-called blender's credit will expire at the end of the year. Ethanol provides about 10% of our nation's automotive fuel, and that is likely to go higher if federal mandates are met. Most hope that ethanol will eventually be made from other sources, such as from wood and plant fibers. But even plans to reach that goal are drawing fire from some farm state lawmakers. Market to Market's Mark Pearson reports.
Congress failed to remove the subsidy, allowing ethanol blenders to defer some of the cost, known as the blender's credit. Fuel companies receive 45 cents for every gallon of the corn-based fuel mixed into conventional gasoline. According to the Renewable Fuels Association, or RFA, after the recent failed attempt to remove the blender's credit, there are still those in Congress who want to eliminate subsidies for biofuels. While new moves may not be as blatant as recent attempts to eliminate the blender's credit, according to RFA President and CEO Bob Dineen, congressional members from oil patch states, as well as others, could eliminate funding for certain EPA and USDA programs and slash income for ethanol producers. Dineen has said he would support elimination of the blender's credit if there was a gradual phase-out. The RFA's support comes on the heels of the official federal increase in the amount of ethanol blended in U.S. motor fuel from 10% to 15%. Dineen also points out oil companies receive subsidies as well. While as much as $6 billion goes to ethanol blenders every year, a recent study conducted by DTN Progressive Farmer revealed oil companies receive up to $17 billion in subsidies annually.
Thank you, everybody.
And the Obama administration remains committed to developing biofuels in the United States.
I will say that the more we see the science, the more we want to find ways to diversify our biofuels so that we're not just reliant on corn-based ethanol. The key going forward is going to be, can we create biofuels out of switchgrass and wood chips and other materials that right now are considered waste materials. And part of the reason that's important is because, as I think most farmers here know, particularly if you're in livestock farming, right now the costs of feed keep on going up, and the cost of food as a consequence are also going up.
The president also announced a joint project between the Department of Energy, USDA, and the Navy to develop alternative fuels for the U.S. military. Over the next 3 years, the biofuels industry will receive an injection of $510 million to help the Navy power vehicles, planes, and ships. The Navy has set a goal of receiving half of its energy needs from biofuels by 2020.
To look at his schedule.
One of the more vocal objections to the program came from Minnesota Congressman Colin Peterson, a Democrat. Peterson, the ranking member of the House Agriculture Committee, says the plan will likely not work and threatens Minnesota's 21 ethanol plants. Peterson has lobbied against the plan for 2 years because he feels costs would be too high and the only ones to benefit would be large oil companies.
Congressman Peterson told the Duluth New Tribune he doesn't think a large federal investment in non-corn biofuels will pan out. He said it will take even more subsidies to get such programs off the ground. Peterson says this comes at a time when the Congress is looking to cut spending instead of increasing it.
Do you think native plants are too boring in the landscape? In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension Horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman will tell us why he thinks the purple coneflower is one of the best plants you can sow.
Purple coneflower is a great native plant, and I personally think it's one of the best plants you can grow in your garden. Today I'm in the All-America Selections Trial Garden at the MSU South Mississippi Branch Station in Poplarville, and I have to say I'm crazy for coneflowers. Who can resist the 2 to 4 inch flowers with bright purple petals and dark center cones? The foliage and stems have hairy surfaces that remind you of medium grit sandpaper. Typically, coneflowers are large back row plants in perennial beds or borders. But plant breeders are developing more compact plants, such as the 2010 All-America Selections winner, Pow Wow Wildberry, that grows up to 20 inches tall. The superior branching results in many 3 to 4 inch flowers that bloom continuously with no deadheading. Though named for the color purple, varieties are being developed with other colors. These coneflowers with orange, yellow, and red flowers are being evaluated for future release. Coneflowers should be considered a tender perennial in the coastal regions, but for the rest of the state, it's a true perennial. The plant is susceptible to crown rot during the winter months. Mississippi gardeners should plant coneflowers in raised beds to help keep the plant crown drier. Coneflowers may be an ideal plant for busy gardeners because they thrive on neglect. Irrigation is only needed during extreme droughts. I'm Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Gary says purple coneflowers are a good choice for busy gardeners and busy people because they will tolerate less care. And
that sounds like
that
you.
would be me. In the feature segment, it's a sight that would cause even Spider-Man or Batman to do a double take. Rooftop farming in New York City. We'll take you to the largest rooftop farm in the world. And Leighton, before we get to you and the markets, I want to talk about that there's a joint conference coming up in November between the Mississippi Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association, the Mississippi Agritourism Association, and the Gulf South Blueberry Growers. That's in November. If you want to get the early bird special, though, on registration, got to do that by August 31st, the end of the month. $75, and you can save $35 over if you show up at the door. You go to our Farmweek website, look at the calendar, and we'll have a link to help you register and get those savings. Now, as we turn to the markets, Leighton, catfish producers seem to be happy with the way that catfish prices are headed.
Lots of smiles in that sector. We'll be looking at the latest processing report that came out Monday the 22nd. Also ahead, record numbers of cattle are placed on feed. Traders in the corn pit say they are worried about supplies over the next year. While it appears most Southeast cotton could avoid any damage from incoming Hurricane Irene. U.S. catfish prices are still up and continuing to rise, according to the monthly snapshot of this industry released Monday afternoon. The average pond bank price being paid to U.S. producers in July was $1.25 per pound. That is up 2 cents per pound from June and an increase of 46 cents per pound compared to only 1 year ago. Farm sales totaled just over 26.5 million pounds round weight, down 32% from the same time a year ago. Processor sales were closing in on 13 million pounds, a decrease of 29% from July 2010. Well, we switch gears a little bit from aquaculture to the beef sector now to check out this month's Cattle on Feed report. The numbers show a record amount of cattle in the United States placed on feed for the month of July. Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley has looked over the report and he answered some questions on Thursday morning. So John Michael, how many cattle does it take to make a record placement for July?
It's 2.1 million head, almost a little higher than that in terms of the placements in July, up well above what was expected, still within the range of expectations, but much higher than we were looking for. The highest placement numbers on record since the series began in 1996. We typically talk about these numbers in year over year, but if you look at how it compared to June placements, up 28%. I think what we're seeing here is an earlier push of summer cattle into feedlots due to the drought conditions that we've spoken of in the past. I feel like a broken record here. But we saw this take place in the spring. You know, cattle coming off a wheat pasture were pushed into feedlots a little earlier in March and April as opposed to the typical May and June. So I think we're seeing that again. At this point in the year, we're seeing these cattle come into feedlots a little earlier because they're just running out of forage, they're running out of supplemental feeds and whatnot.
So in the months to come, are we likely to continue to see this trend of pushing cattle ahead like we've seen in these months behind us?
Well, if we look back at what happened in the spring, the push came and then the numbers in May and June kind of leveled off a little bit. We're a little lower than expected or typical. We're probably going to see that again. You know, we typically have our largest placements of the year in October. I think we're probably going to see a leveling off as we move into the fall because there's been so many cattle pushed in the feedlots earlier. But again, as drought conditions continue to progress, you know, people might have to continue to liquidate, which could keep cattle going in the feedlots.
And obviously this trend, the herd is declining. So what does that mean for prices as we approach the last quarter of the year?
Well, all the signs still point to you know, steady to higher prices due to the fact that we are in a tight supply situation. Unfortunately, there's you know, another side of the equation, demand. The economy continues to not struggle, but just, you know, it's up and down in the general economy, which is probably going to weigh on demand as we continue forward and could likely you know, keep a ceiling on prices.
But retail prices for the moment are probably going to go higher.
Well, it's likely expected.
Well, the subject is cotton for this edition of the Trivia Quiz on Farm Week. Here's the question for this week. What is the top cotton producing state? Is it Texas, California, Mississippi, or Georgia? You'll find out before our feature story.
We're going to pause now for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar, the second part of the markets. Leighton Spann reports on corn prices and the fact that the cotton crop appears big enough to meet current demand. In the feature segment today, going up on the roof to get down on the farm. Find out about rooftop agriculture in New York City.
MSUcares.com is a popular website offering coordinated access to Mississippi State University's research and extension system. Now we have a Spanish language version of MSUcares.com where you'll find newsletters, brochures, and publications. Plus, you can view Spanish language videos on topics including credit, finances, and immunization. Visit MSUcares.com today and click on the En Español link for useful Spanish language information.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. The joint conference of the Mississippi Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association, the Mississippi Agritourism Association, and the Gulf South Blueberry Growers Association takes place in Vicksburg November 14th through the 16th. Now that's a ways off, but if you want to save some money, early bird registration ends August 31st. Early registration is $75. Registration after August 31st is $100. It's $110 at the door. We'll have a link to the online registration site in the Farm Week calendar. Timberland owners should check out Are My Pine Trees Ready to Thin workshop. It takes place Thursday, September 8th in First United Methodist Church in Baldwin, Mississippi. Costs $20 per person. This includes materials, refreshments, and lunch. You'll learn and get some actual field experience on determining if your pine trees are ready to thin. Please pre-register by September 5th for this workshop. We will have a link to the registration form. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this Farm Week snapshot.
Some private forecasters are reportedly estimating a national corn yield below 150. Analysts say this idea may gain some traction in the next couple of weeks ahead of the upcoming September crop report. Jamie Kohaki advises that once a producer works up his input numbers and knows his profit potential, it may be time to look at making some 2012 corn sales.
This red D's, I would look at, 660, 680. I think there's still potential for more upside there just based off, I think, final yields probably coming in the low 150s, brings the total crop size 12.7, 12.8, and we're still in a very, same situation close to last year. So I think 660 is a good price to start at there for the red D's.
AgFacts.com is reporting that cotton defoliation has started on a widely scattered basis in the South Delta. Meanwhile, to the east, it appears now the projected path of Hurricane Irene will not bring much risk of damaging rains and wind over the cotton crop in Georgia and South Carolina. In the markets this morning, Thursday morning, cotton futures traded sharply lower after the USDA reported heavy weekly cancellations of U.S. export sales. And on top of that, the Census Bureau said that domestic mill use of cotton fell last month. Analyst Jamie Kohaki says there has been more fund activity in not only the cotton market, but other row crop commodities as well.
I don't know how long it's going to last. This weak dollar, too, is starting to help out again as well. But with this whole entire grain complex, cotton as well, oats, we have to export the crop. And right now, I think we're at levels where they're going to start backing off. So that's why I'm more into, putting a floor underneath this thing.
The only mill in the United States using poplar and sweet gum trees to make chopsticks opened earlier this summer. Georgia Chopsticks in Americus, Georgia says it will turn out 2 million chopsticks a day, but the capacity will be growing up to 10 million a day by the end of this year. The new wood product for the United States is, as you might guess, being exported to China, Japan, and Korea. Well, before our feature story, here's our answer to the trivia quiz for this week. The right choice is A. Texas grows the most cotton of all the states. They account for about 1/2 of all cotton acres in this country.
We've had unusual farms on Farm Week before, mushroom farms, for example. Today, however, may be the most unusual yet. You'll go to New York City to the world's largest rooftop farm. You'll also see a rooftop hydroponic greenhouse operation there. There are serious efforts to introduce production agriculture into Gotham City. Market to Market's Laurel Bauer-Bergmeyer reports.
Ben Flanner is head farmer and co-founder of Brooklyn Grange Farm, a 40,000 square foot soil-based rooftop farm. That's 1 acre, located above a former manufacturing plant in Long Island City. Developed in 2010, Brooklyn Grange is considered to be the largest rooftop farm in the world.
It just seems to make sense to me to do something practical on top of rooftop spaces. We have all these empty roofs that have sun bearing down on them all day long. So it makes sense to do something with them that's productive.
Flanner and his team, which includes 4 other co-founders and scores of volunteers, farm the roof about 9 months out of the year. During the growing season, there are hundreds of thousands of plants on the roof. The crops are sold directly to the community at several weekly farm stands, as well as to local restaurants like Vesta, located in Queens.
For someone that comes from the country or someone that comes from the Midwest, that might be an everyday thing. But for someone that grows up in the 5 boroughs of New York City, that's something you've never seen besides maybe your neighbor who has 2 tomatoes planted. And I mean, the taste is just on a level that we would never be able to appreciate if you didn't have something like that, because the supermarket tomato or the supermarket green doesn't taste like what Ben Flanner or the Brooklyn Grange is doing for you.
Giuseppe Falco co-owns Vesta and says having a relationship with Brooklyn Grange has allowed him to make local ingredients a mainstay on his menu.
We're very, very flexible about the items we take from Brooklyn Grange. So for the most part, we'll usually get a phone call once a week and it'll be like, look, this is what's going to happen on Tuesday and this is what's going to happen on Wednesday. And we'll kind of cater our menu to that. The fun aspect is being able to tell the farmer, hey, I really like this type of carrot. Can you grow it for me?
In its first year of business, Brooklyn Grange sold 14,000 pounds of produce to local restaurants and farmers markets. It managed to cover its operating costs while making a small profit.
It's not easy to put together such a plan such as this. It takes a lot of dedication and time, and you have to be in it 110% full time. But it's possible. Anybody can do it, and I think the biggest component of it is convincing the landlord that it's worth the risk and that there is a low risk. If somebody owns a big expensive building in New York City, it's a big deal. There's a lot of insurance risks and everything, and the core components, just like a lot of different things, are having a great relationship and trust, and then finding the right people that are willing to take a little bit of a leap with you.
Brooklyn Grange has a 10-year lease with Acumen Capital Partners. The crops are grown in roughly 1.2 million pounds of soil on top of more than 20,000 linear feet of green roofing material. The farm is financed through a combination of private funds, loans, and grassroots money-raising events.
I think a lot of people are excited about having food that's grown so close to their homes and picked so close in time to the point where they eat it and purchase it. So there's a lot of positive response from the community.
Another New York-based company is also part of the rooftop farming revolution. Instead of using dirt, however, Bright Farms LLC grows its produce in a less traditional way using hydroponics, or the growing of plants without soil. Benjamin Lindsley is the Vice President of Business Development and Public Affairs for Bright Farms.
Bright Farm Systems is a design and engineering firm, and we focus on one particular idea, and that is rooftop hydroponic greenhouses in urban areas for urban food production.
In the fall of 2010, Bright Farms was commissioned to design an environmental education center and local food production facility on the roof of the Manhattan School for Children on the Upper West Side.
It's an education facility, so there will be food produced here. It will be using hydroponic technology, and the food will be going into the school's cafeteria for the students.
Lindsley says Bright Farms focuses on delivery of the best quality fruits and vegetables, grown with the smallest possible environmental impact. He claims hydroponic farms use 90% less water than traditional methods by capturing rainfall from the roof and recirculating it. Some greenhouses are heavy emitters of carbon dioxide gases because of the energy needed to heat in the winter and cool in the summer. Bright Farms is able to greatly reduce fossil fuel use by utilizing solar panels and ventilation systems. He also points out since soil is not used in hydroponic farming, the method is lightweight, making it ideal for a rooftop setting. And Lindsley adds some of Bright Farms' climate-controlled greenhouses are capable of producing 250 tons of food per year.
From a commercial perspective, there's a real advantage in being able to be a farmer that grows 365 days of the year. It's an extremely high-yield form of agriculture. It produces a very, very high-quality vegetable, and it's very, very efficient on resources.
While using different methods, both Bright Farms and Brooklyn Grange would agree, growing food in the city is good for the environment and good for people. Studies suggest there could be enough rooftop space in New York City to grow all of the fresh vegetables needed for the nearly 19 million residents.
I think that sometimes in life we get away from the things that come natural, and it's funny, but I grew up in a European household where it was completely natural to walk down the street to pick up vegetables and to pick up meat. And I think we've gotten slightly away from it in the past, 20 or 30 years. And I think that now we're finally starting to realize that that's the way that things should be. It should be that you have some sort of relationship with the person that's growing something for you. And I think that we're finally getting back to that.
Do you get some basil? Okay, I'm good.
For Market to Market, I'm Laurel Bauer-Bergmeyer.
You can watch this story again on our Farm Week website. We'll also have a link to the Market to Market website where you can see the story as well and read the script. Now, if you'd like more information on the Brooklyn Grange Farm, we'll have a link to their website as well. That's farmweek.msucares.com. Well, Leighton, what do you think?
Well, I think with all the rooftops in a place like New York City, I think it's an idea whose time has come.
Well, one thing too, this building is empty. So this wasn't earning any money for the whoever owns it. So here he's got a 10-year lease with them. And it's an organic farm, so that's a higher value product by itself. So, I mean, I think if he can make it go, it's great, because to me, the more people get plugged into food and knowing how it's produced, I think even organic people can have some sympathy for traditional farmers and vice versa. Because otherwise, you go to the store and you get it and you go home. And a lot of people, they don't even pause to think about what it took to get that to the store. So if you can get them plugged in.
And as the restaurant operator noted, it's all about the taste. Fresh tastes better, too.
And it's a marketing ploy for them as well. The taste is good, and they're serving an organic product, which maybe that's what they want to serve. So once again, it's the deal that it's there. Anyway, I think it works. Well, we're at the Farm Week, the end of for Farm Week for this week. On our show next week, you're going to find out about a web marketing tool that you don't have to be an expert to use.
Mississippi Market Maker allows growers and food manufacturers to market their products nationwide. The Fertizis of Leland, Mississippi are marketing their freshwater prawns using Market Maker.
The Mississippi Cattlemen's Association and the Mississippi State University Animal and Dairy Science Department recently treated the university's football players to a steak dinner. They had some fun as they learned why agriculture is important to Mississippi.
And in Southern Gardening, Garden Retreats. Learn some tips to get started on your own special sanctuary.
For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.